The morning sun cast long shadows across the dusty Afghan village as Maya Chen adjusted the scope on her rifle for the 100th time. She wasn't supposed to be here. Hell, according to every military database in existence, she didn't even exist. No dog tags around her neck, no uniform bearing her name, no official record linking her to any branch of the armed forces. Yet here she was, perched on a rooftop 300 meters from a Taliban stronghold, about to change the course of a mission that had already claimed too many American lives. Maya's journey to this moment began not in boot camp or officer training school, but in the dense forests of rural Oregon, where her grandfather had taught her to shoot when she was barely 10 years old. Henry Chen had been a sniper in Vietnam, though he rarely talked about it. What he did talk about was precision, patience, and the sacred responsibility that came with taking a life from a distance. A sniper isn't just someone who can shoot straight, he would tell her as they tracked deer through the morning mist. Any fool can pull a trigger. A sniper is someone who understands the weight of that bullet long before it leaves the barrel. Maya had absorbed those lessons like gospel. By the time she was 16, she could hit a target the size of a quarter from 400 yards. By 18, she was outshotting seasoned hunters and competitive marksmen at local ranges. But her path to becoming a ghost in the military world began with a tragedy that shattered her carefully planned civilian life. She had been studying engineering at Oregon State University when the towers fell on September 11th. Like many young Americans, Maya felt a burning need to serve, to do something meaningful in response to the attacks. She tried enlisting in the Marines, the Army, even the Air Force, but each time she was turned away, not because she wasn't qualified, but because of her mother. Dr. Linda Chen was a Chinese-American biochemist whose research on nerve agents had once been classified at the highest levels. Though she had been cleared of any wrongdoing years earlier, the shadow of suspicion still followed the family name. Maya's background checks always came back with red flags that no recruiter was willing to overlook. Frustrated but not defeated, Maya threw herself into her studies and her shooting. She graduated summa cum laude with degrees in both engineering and mathematics, skills that would prove invaluable in calculating bullet trajectories and wind resistance. More importantly, she continued training with weapons, expanding her expertise beyond rifles to include explosives, urban warfare tactics, and survival skills. It was during a shooting competition in Nevada that Maya first caught the attention of the people who would change her life forever. She was competing against former military snipers and law enforcement officers, men and women with decades of experience. Yet Maya consistently outshot them all, demonstrating not just accuracy, but an almost supernatural ability to read wind patterns and environmental conditions. A man approached her after the competition. He was unremarkable in every way. Average height, graying hair, the kind of face you'd forget 5 minutes after meeting him. He introduced himself simply as Peterson and asked if she'd be interested in some freelance work for the government. Maya should have walked away. She should have asked more questions, demanded credentials, insisted on official paperwork. Instead, something in Peterson's eyes told her this was the chance she had been waiting for. 3 weeks later, she found herself at a private training facility in the mountains of Montana, learning skills that weren't taught in any military manual. The facility didn't exist on any map. The instructors had no names, only call signs. Maya learned urban warfare from a former Delta Force operator known only as Wolf. An ex-CIA operative called Raven taught her surveillance and counter-surveillance techniques. Most importantly, a mysterious woman known as Phoenix schooled her in the art of being invisible, how to move through hostile territory without leaving a trace, how to blend into local populations, how to operate completely outside official channels. For 2 years, Maya trained in secret. She learned to speak Dari and Pashto, studied Middle Eastern culture and customs, and mastered the use of weapons systems that weren't supposed to exist. She became proficient with the latest generation of smart scopes that could calculate wind speed and distance automatically, though she could still outshoot them using iron sights and instinct. The training was brutal. Physically, she pushed her body to limits she never imagined possible. Mentally, she was broken down and rebuilt into something harder, sharper, more focused. Emotionally, she learned to compartmentalize, to separate the person she had been from the weapon she was becoming. But it was the psychological training that nearly broke her. They made her kill animals at first. Rabbits, deer, eventually a wolf that had been captured specifically for this purpose. Each time, they made her hold the dying animal while they explained the weight of taking a life, the responsibility that came with the power to end another creature's existence. "You're not just learning to shoot," Phoenix told her during one particularly difficult session. "You're learning to carry the souls of everyone you'll ever kill. That weight will either make you stronger or destroy you. We need to know which it will be." Maya carried that weight. She absorbed it, internalized it, made it part of her strength rather than her weakness. She learned to honor every life she took by ensuring that her actions served a greater purpose, that the deaths she caused prevented even greater tragedies. When her training was complete, Maya ceased to exist in any official capacity. Her college records were sealed. Her medical files disappeared. Even her social security number was scrubbed from government databases. She became a ghost, a shadow operative who could move through the world without leaving any trace of her presence. Her first mission was in Iraq, where she spent 6 months embedded with various units as a civilian contractor. Her job was simple: eliminate high-value targets that conventional forces couldn't reach. Maya excelled at the work, developing a reputation among those who knew of her existence as someone who never missed, never left evidence, and never failed to complete a mission. But it was her deployment to Afghanistan that truly tested everything she had learned. The country was a maze of tribal loyalties, religious extremism, and ancient grudges that defied simple military solutions. Maya found herself operating in an environment where the line between friend and enemy shifted daily, where a village elder might be a Taliban sympathizer in the morning and a valuable intelligence asset by evening. She worked alone, moving through the country like a ghost. Sometimes she would spend weeks embedded with special forces units, posing as a translator or cultural advisor while secretly gathering intelligence on high-value targets. Other times she operated completely independently, living off the land and striking at enemy positions before melting back into the landscape. Maya's targets were always carefully selected. She never killed soldiers or low-level fighters. Her bullets were reserved for bomb makers, terrorist financiers, and commanders whose deaths would save American lives and protect innocent civilians. Each shot was calculated not just for accuracy, but for maximum strategic impact. It was during her 3rd year in Afghanistan that Maya first encountered the SEAL team that would change everything. She had been tracking a Taliban commander known as the Engineer, a former university professor who had become one of the most effective bomb makers in the region. Intelligence indicated he was planning a massive attack on a coalition base that housed over 2,000 American and Allied troops. The SEAL team had been tasked with capturing the Engineer alive, hoping to extract information about other planned attacks. But their mission had gone wrong from the start. They had been betrayed by a local guide and walked into an ambush that left 2 of their number dead and the rest pinned down in a compound surrounded by enemy fighters. Maya had been watching the compound through her scope when the SEALs arrived. She saw the ambush developing before they did, watched as the Taliban fighters moved into position around the building. She could have simply observed, gathering intelligence on enemy tactics and numbers. Her mission parameters didn't include providing support to military units that hadn't requested it. But watching American soldiers die when she could prevent it went against everything her grandfather had taught her about the sacred responsibility of a sniper. Maya made a choice that would define the rest of her career and ultimately lead to that moment on the rooftop where a SEAL commander would salute someone who officially didn't exist. She began picking off Taliban fighters one by one, each shot precisely calculated to eliminate threats, while making it appear that the SEALs themselves were responsible for the kills. Maya worked methodically, using her knowledge of local terrain and wind patterns to place bullets exactly where they would do the most good. The SEAL team leader, Commander Jake Morrison, was a veteran of dozens of combat operations. He had seen enough firefights to know when something unusual was happening. The Taliban fighters were dropping too precisely, too strategically. Someone with exceptional skill was providing overwatch, but none of his spotters could identify the shooter's position. Maya saved the SEAL team that day, but she also created a mystery that would consume Commander Morrison for months afterward. Who was the guardian angel who had appeared from nowhere to turn the tide of battle? Military intelligence had no record of any friendly snipers in the area. Local forces lacked the skill and equipment for such precise long-range shooting. The incident report filed by Morrison's team mentioned an unknown friendly sniper who had provided crucial support during their extraction. But when military investigators tried to identify this mysterious ally, they found nothing. No radio chatter, no visual confirmation, no evidence that anyone else had been involved in the firefight. Maya had vanished back into the shadows, leaving only questions behind. But Commander Morrison was not the type of man who forgot a debt of gratitude. He began asking quiet questions, putting together pieces of a puzzle that officially didn't exist. Other special operations teams reported similar incidents, impossible shots made by invisible snipers who saved American lives and then disappeared without a trace. A pattern began to emerge in Morrison's investigation. The mysterious sniper seemed to specialize in eliminating bomb makers and terrorist financiers. The shots were always perfectly placed, always served a larger strategic purpose. Whoever this person was, they had access to excellent intelligence and possessed skills that rivaled the best military snipers in the world. Morrison's search for answers led him deeper into the shadowy world of black operations and unofficial military actions. He learned about programs that didn't exist, operatives who had no names, and missions that were never recorded in official files. The more he discovered, the more convinced he became that America's most effective sniper was someone who couldn't be found in any military database. Maya, meanwhile, continued her work in Afghanistan, unaware that she had gained the attention of one of the military's most respected commanders. She had completed 17 successful missions, eliminating key terrorist leaders and preventing numerous attacks on coalition forces. Her existence remained a secret known only to a handful of intelligence officers and the mysterious handlers who provided her with targets and equipment. But Maya's war was about to take a dramatic turn. Intelligence had identified the location of Khalid Rahman, a terrorist leader responsible for coordinating attacks across multiple Afghan provinces. Rahman had been the target of numerous military operations, but he had always managed to escape capture. Now, satellite surveillance had pinpointed his location in a remote mountain compound that would be impossible for conventional forces to assault. Maya's handlers gave her the mission: eliminate Rahman and any other high-value targets present at the compound. It should have been a straightforward operation, the kind of precision strike she had executed dozens of times before. But this mission would bring her face-to-face with Commander Morrison and his SEAL team under circumstances that would test everything she believed about duty, honor, and the true meaning of service. As Maya made her final preparations for what would become the most important mission of her career, she had no idea that her actions were about to earn her something no medal or commendation could provide: the respect of warriors who had no idea she even existed. The ghost was about to become real, if only for one perfect moment when skill, courage, and honor converged in the crosshairs of her scope. The mountain air was thin and bitter cold as Maya settled into her position on the ridge overlooking Khalid Rahman's compound. She had been lying motionless for 18 hours, her body temperature regulated by specialized gear that made her invisible to thermal imaging. Through her scope, she could see the terrorist leader moving between buildings, surrounded by heavily armed guards who seemed to anticipate trouble. Maya's intelligence had been correct. Rahman wasn't just hiding in this remote location, he was planning something big. Intercepted communications suggested a coordinated series of attacks that would target civilian populations in Kabul and other major cities. The man in her crosshairs was responsible for the deaths of hundreds of innocent people, and his continued existence threatened thousands more. But as Maya tracked Rahman through her scope, calculating wind speed and bullet drop for the eventual shot, her earpiece crackled with unexpected radio chatter. She recognized the voice immediately. Commander Morrison was leading a SEAL team up the mountainside, approaching the compound from the east. Maya's blood ran cold as she realized what was happening. Morrison's team had been given the same target, but their mission parameters were different. They needed Rahman alive. The terrorist leader possessed crucial intelligence about planned attacks and terrorist networks that could only be extracted through interrogation. A sniper's bullet would eliminate the threat, but also destroy invaluable information that could save countless lives. Maya found herself facing an impossible choice. Her orders were clear. Eliminate Rahman before he could escape to plan more attacks. But if she took the shot, she would be directly interfering with a military operation and potentially condemning future victims to death because critical intelligence died with her target. Through her scope, Maya watched as Morrison's team moved into position around the compound. They were good, better than good. Their movements were coordinated and silent. Their approach nearly perfect. But Maya could see things from her elevated position that they couldn't. Hidden sentries, concealed weapon positions, a carefully planned defensive network that would turn their insertion into a massacre. Rahman wasn't just hiding in this compound, he was using it as bait for exactly this kind of operation. Maya realized with growing horror that the terrorist leader knew about the incoming SEAL team. The intelligence that had led both her and Morrison to this location had been deliberately leaked. Rahman was planning to capture or kill some of America's most elite soldiers and use the propaganda value to recruit more followers to his cause. Maya counted at least 30 enemy fighters concealed around the compound, many of them positioned where Morrison's team couldn't see them. Hidden snipers occupied elevated positions that would provide devastating crossfire once the SEALs committed to their assault. Worse, Maya spotted the distinctive shape of rocket-propelled grenades and heavy machine guns positioned to cut off any retreat routes. For the first time in her career as a ghost operative, Maya faced a decision that went beyond her mission parameters. She could take her shot at Rahman, eliminating the primary threat, but alerting the defensive network and ensuring Morrison's team walked into a killing field. Or she could compromise her own position to provide overwatch for the SEALs, potentially allowing Rahman to escape, but saving the lives of 8 American warriors. Maya made her choice in the space of a heartbeat. Rahman was a monster who deserved to die, but he wasn't worth the lives of 8 Navy SEALs. She shifted her rifle, acquiring her first target among the hidden defenders. The enemy sniper never saw death coming. Maya's bullet took him through the head at a range of nearly 600 meters, a shot made more difficult by crosswinds and the target's concealed position. She worked her bolt smoothly, acquiring her next target before the first man's body had finished falling. Maya began a deadly ballet, eliminating threats in a carefully orchestrated sequence designed to maximize confusion among Rahman's defenders while providing the SEALs with the best possible chance of success. She took out sentries first, then machine gun positions, always careful to make her shots look like accidents or friendly fire incidents rather than the work of an external sniper. Commander Morrison knew something was wrong the moment his point man reported that a guard post had gone silent. His team had been watching the compound for hours, mapping out defensive positions and planning their approach. Guards didn't just disappear without cause, and Morrison's experience told him they were walking into a trap. But as his team moved closer to the compound, Morrison began to notice that the trap was systematically dismantling itself. Weapon positions that should have been manned were empty. Sentries who had been visible through night vision scopes were nowhere to be found. Someone was clearing a path for his team, and Morrison had a growing suspicion about who that someone might be. Maya continued her deadly work, each shot precisely calculated not just for lethality, but for tactical effect. She eliminated a group of fighters preparing to ambush the SEALs from behind, then took out a communications operator who was trying to call for reinforcements. Her bullets carved through the darkness like instruments of divine intervention, each one saving American lives. But Maya's intervention created a new problem. Rahman realized his defensive network was being systematically destroyed by an enemy he couldn't see. The terrorist leader began moving toward a hidden escape tunnel that would allow him to disappear into the mountain wilderness. Maya could see him heading for freedom, and she knew that if he escaped, the intelligence he carried would die with him. Morrison's team breached the compound's outer perimeter just as Rahman reached the tunnel entrance. The SEAL commander could see his target escaping, but his men were still dealing with the remaining defenders. Taking the shot himself would mean leaving his team without leadership during the most critical phase of their operation. That's when Maya made the most difficult decision of her career. She had spent years operating in the shadows, maintaining perfect operational security by ensuring that no one ever knew she existed. But 8 American lives and potentially thousands of innocent civilians hung in the balance. Maya broke radio silence for the first time in 3 years of combat operations. "SEAL Team Leader, this is Angel." Maya's voice crackled through Morrison's earpiece, using a call sign she invented on the spot. "Your 6 is clear. Rabbit is running toward the mountain face, bearing 090 from your position. I can't take the shot without compromising friendly positions." Morrison's mind raced as he processed this new information. Someone had been providing overwatch for his team, eliminating threats and clearing their approach. Now that same person was offering to guide them to their target. Every instinct told Morrison to demand identification and credentials, but his experience told him to trust the voice that had just saved his men's lives. "Angel, this is Morrison. Can you maintain overwatch while we pursue?" Maya's response was immediate. "Affirmative. You have 2 tangos between your position and the rabbit's location. First one is behind the stone wall at your 2 o'clock. Second is concealed in the building foundation at your 11 o'clock. Morrison hand-signaled his team, directing them around the threats that their mysterious guardian angel had identified. His men moved with practiced precision, neutralizing both enemy fighters exactly where Angel had said they would be. Whoever was providing this intelligence had an incredible vantage point and the skills to use it effectively. Maya watched through her scope as Morrison's team closed in on Rahman's escape tunnel. The terrorist leader had almost reached safety when the SEALs burst into the tunnel system. Maya could hear the brief firefight through her earpiece as Morrison's men overcame Rahman's final guards and captured their target alive. "Angel, this is Morrison," the commander's voice came through the radio after several minutes of silence. "Package secured. Can you provide cover for our extraction?" Maya was already moving, relocating to a new position that would give her better fields of fire for the team's withdrawal route. "Copy that, Morrison. I have eyes on your extraction route. Be advised, you have a patrol moving up the mountain path from the south. Approximately 12 tangos. ETA 15 minutes to your position." Morrison acknowledged the intelligence and began moving his team toward their extraction point, carrying Rahman as a prisoner. Maya provided overwatch every step of the way, her scope tracking potential threats while her voice guided the SEALs through the safest possible route down the mountain. The incoming patrol Maya had spotted posed the biggest threat to the extraction. 12 heavily armed fighters moving up a narrow mountain path where the SEALs had no cover and limited options for defensive positions. Maya realized she would have to engage the patrol directly if Morrison's team was going to make it to their helicopter pickup alive. "Morrison, you need to move faster," Maya radioed. "That patrol is climbing faster than anticipated. I'm going to engage them, but it's going to compromise my position. Once I start shooting, you'll have maybe 10 minutes before they call in reinforcements." "Negative, Angel." Morrison's voice was firm. "We don't leave anyone behind. What's your position? We can provide support." Maya almost smiled at the commander's response. Here was a man who was willing to risk his mission and his team to help someone he had never seen, someone who existed only as a voice on the radio. It was exactly the kind of honor and courage that Maya had hoped to find in America's military when she first tried to enlist years earlier. "Negative, Morrison. My position is classified, and I work better alone. Just get to your extraction point." Maya opened fire on the approaching patrol before Morrison could argue further. Her first shot dropped the patrol leader at a range of 800 meters, a difficult shot made more challenging by the steep angle and high altitude. The remaining fighters immediately sought cover, but Maya had chosen her position perfectly to deny them effective concealment. Working methodically, Maya eliminated half the patrol in less than 2 minutes of shooting. The survivors broke and fled back down the mountain, unwilling to face an enemy sniper they couldn't locate. Maya had bought Morrison's team the time they needed to reach their helicopter and escape with their prisoner. But Maya's own extraction was complicated by the fact that she officially didn't exist. No helicopter would be coming for her, no backup team was standing by to provide support. She would have to make her way off the mountain alone, carrying her equipment and avoiding enemy patrols that would be scouring the area for the mysterious sniper. As Maya began her careful descent from her sniper's perch, Morrison's voice crackled through her earpiece one final time. "Angel, this is Morrison. I don't know who you are or who you work for, but you saved 8 American lives tonight. When this war is over, I'm going to find you and thank you properly." Maya switched off her radio without responding. But she carried Morrison's words with her as she made her way through the darkness. For 3 years, she had operated as a ghost, taking lives and saving lives with equal precision, but never receiving recognition for her sacrifices. Morrison's simple acknowledgement meant more to her than any medal or commendation ever could. The intelligence extracted from Rahman during interrogation prevented 6 separate terrorist attacks and led to the capture of an entire bomb-making network. Dozens of American lives were saved because Morrison's team had succeeded in their mission. Maya took no official credit for her role in that success, but she knew that her bullets had made the difference between victory and catastrophe. In the months that followed, Maya continued her shadow war against terrorism, eliminating high-value targets and protecting American forces throughout Afghanistan. But something had changed during that mission with Morrison's team. For the first time, she had worked directly with American military personnel, and the experience had reminded her why she had chosen this lonely path of service. Maya began taking greater risks to protect coalition forces, even when it meant compromising her own operational security. She provided overwatch for dangerous missions, eliminated threats to American patrols, and gathered intelligence that saved countless lives. Always, she remained invisible, a guardian angel whose existence was known only to the warriors she protected. Commander Morrison never stopped investigating the identity of the mysterious sniper who had saved his team. He compiled reports from other special operations units, tracking incidents where an unknown friendly sniper had provided crucial support during combat operations. A pattern emerged that convinced Morrison he was dealing with someone exceptional. a warrior whose skills surpassed even the military's most elite snipers. Maya's handlers began expressing concern about her increased exposure. Each time she revealed herself to help American forces, she risked discovery and the potential compromise of her entire operation. They reminded her repeatedly that her mission was to eliminate high-value targets, not to provide support for military operations that could succeed without her intervention. But Maya had found something in her collaboration with Morrison's team that she had been missing throughout her years as a ghost operative. She had rediscovered the true meaning of service, not just the elimination of enemies, but the protection of those who served alongside her in the fight for freedom and justice. That philosophy would soon be put to its ultimate test. Intelligence had identified a massive terrorist gathering in the mountains near the Pakistan border. Dozens of high-value targets would be present, including several men responsible for attacks on American soil. It was exactly the kind of target that Maya had been created to eliminate. But the same intelligence indicated that a joint American-Afghan military operation was being planned for the same location. Maya would have to choose between completing her mission and protecting the soldiers who were walking into what could become the bloodiest battle of the Afghan war. The decision she made would determine not only the fate of her targets, but the future of her relationship with the military community she had sworn to protect from the shadows. The gathering in the mountain valley was unlike anything Maya had seen in 4 years of combat operations. Through her high-powered scope, she counted over 200 terrorist fighters assembled around a series of interconnected caves and fortified positions. Intelligence reports had been accurate. This was a convergence of Taliban and al-Qaeda leadership planning coordinated attacks across 3 countries. Maya had been watching the valley for 2 days, cataloging targets and planning her approach. Her mission was simple: eliminate as many high-value targets as possible before they could disperse back to their various cells. Among the assembled terrorists were bomb makers responsible for attacks on American schools, financiers who funded suicide bombers, and commanders who had tortured captured soldiers. But Maya's blood ran cold when she intercepted radio chatter indicating that a joint American-Afghan force was approaching the valley from the north. She recognized Commander Morrison's voice coordinating with Afghan military leaders, planning an assault that would attempt to capture the terrorist leaders alive. The conventional force numbered only 60 soldiers against more than 200 entrenched enemies in fortified positions. Maya realized with growing horror that military intelligence had severely underestimated the enemy's strength and defensive capabilities. The terrorists had been planning for exactly this kind of assault, turning the valley into a killing field with overlapping fields of fire, concealed heavy weapons, and prepared defensive positions that would slaughter any attacking force. Through her scope, Maya could see rocket-propelled grenade teams positioned on the surrounding ridges, heavy machine guns concealed in cave mouths, and sniper positions that would turn the valley floor into a shooting gallery. The approaching American-Afghan force was walking into a massacre, and they had no idea what awaited them. Maya's handlers had been specific about her mission parameters. She was to begin eliminating targets at dawn, working systematically through the terrorist leadership before they could escape. Her orders explicitly forbade any action that might compromise the operation by alerting enemy forces to her presence. The mission was considered too important to risk for any reason. But as Maya watched Morrison's force moving closer to the valley, she faced the defining moment of her career. She could follow orders and complete her mission, likely eliminating dozens of terrorist leaders while Morrison's men were slaughtered in the valley below. Or she could abandon her mission to provide support for the military operation, potentially allowing dangerous terrorists to escape but saving the lives of 60 American and Afghan soldiers. Maya thought about her grandfather's words about the sacred responsibility of a sniper. Every bullet carried weight, every trigger pull carried consequences that extended far beyond the immediate target. The choice she made in the next few minutes would define not just the success or failure of two military operations, but the very nature of who she was as a person and as a warrior. Maya made her decision and immediately began relocating to positions that would give her maximum effectiveness against the terrorist defensive network. She abandoned her carefully planned assassination mission and instead began preparing to provide overwatch for an assault that was doomed to fail without her intervention. As the first light of dawn crept across the mountain peaks, Maya watched through her scope as Morrison's force reached the valley entrance. The commander was moving cautiously, clearly sensing that something was wrong, but he couldn't see the extent of the trap that awaited his men. Maya knew she had perhaps minutes before the shooting started. Maya broke radio silence for the second time in her career, broadcasting on a frequency she knew Morrison would be monitoring. "Thunder 6, this is Angel," Maya transmitted, using Morrison's call sign from their previous encounter. "You are walking into a prepared kill zone. Advise immediate withdrawal to reassess." Morrison's response was immediate. "Angel, how did you get this frequency? What's your position?" "No time to explain, Thunder 6. You have RPG teams on the eastern ridge, heavy machine guns in the cave system at bearing 270, and sniper positions on the western slope. Current enemy strength is estimated at 200-plus fighters in prepared defensive positions." Maya could hear Morrison conferring with his subordinates as they processed this intelligence. The force composition Maya described was 3 times larger than what their intelligence had indicated, and the defensive preparation suggested this was a carefully planned ambush rather than a simple gathering. "Angel, can you confirm enemy positions? Our intel shows maybe 70 fighters with limited defensive preparation." Maya was already adjusting her scope, preparing to demonstrate the accuracy of her intelligence in the most direct way possible. "Thunder 6, observe the eastern ridge in 3 seconds. Maya's bullet found its target perfectly, dropping an RPG gunner at nearly 1,000 meters. The shot was followed immediately by secondary explosions as the terrorists' ammunition detonated, revealing the position to Morrison's spotters. "Confirmed, Angel. We see the position. What's your recommendation?" Maya studied the tactical situation, calculating fields of fire and defensive strengths with the same precision she used for long-range shooting. The terrorist positions were formidable, but they had been designed to repel a conventional frontal assault. A coordinated attack supported by precision sniper fire could succeed, but it would require perfect timing and absolute trust between forces that had never worked together. "Thunder 6, you need to split your force. Send your Afghan allies up the western slope to fix the enemy's attention, while your primary force moves through the southern approach where I can provide overwatch. I'll eliminate the heavy weapon positions and key defensive points, but you'll need to trust my targeting." Morrison had to make his own impossible choice. Trust an unknown sniper who existed only as a voice on the radio, or attempt to withdraw his force through terrain that was probably as heavily defended as the valley itself. His men were counting on him to make the right decision, and dozens of lives hung in the balance. "Angel, I need to know who you are. I can't commit my men based on intelligence from someone I've never seen." Maya had known this moment would come eventually. For 4 years, she had operated as a ghost, but the time for hiding was over. The lives of Morrison's men mattered more than her operational security, more than her mission, more than her own safety. "Thunder 6, I'm the sniper who provided overwatch during your mission to capture Rahman. I'm the guardian angel who's been protecting American forces throughout this theater. I don't exist in any official database, but I've been fighting this war longer than most of your men have been in the service." There was a long pause before Morrison responded. "Angel, are you telling me you're the ghost sniper my teams have been reporting for the past year?" "Affirmative, Thunder 6, and if you want to keep your men alive, you need to trust me now." Morrison's decision came without hesitation. "Copy, Angel. We're moving to the southern approach. Light up those defensive positions." Maya began the most challenging shooting of her career, engaging targets across a massive battlefield while coordinating with a mobile assault force. She started with the heavy machine gun positions in the caves, placing bullets with surgical precision to eliminate gunners without collapsing the cave systems that might shelter civilians. Working methodically across the valley, Maya eliminated sniper positions on the western slope, cleared rocket teams from the eastern ridge, and neutralized communications equipment that would have allowed the terrorists to coordinate their defense. Each shot was calculated not just for lethality, but for tactical effect, creating gaps in the defensive network that Morrison's men could exploit. The terrorist forces found themselves fighting an enemy they couldn't see against, their carefully prepared defenses neutralized by bullets that seemed to come from nowhere. Maya's shooting was so precise and her position so well concealed that many of the defenders believed they were being attacked by multiple snipers or some kind of advanced weapon system. Morrison's assault succeeded beyond his wildest expectations. Supported by Maya's precision fire, his men moved through the valley like a scalpel through tissue, neutralizing resistance with minimal casualties. The terrorist leadership that had gathered to plan attacks across 3 countries was either captured or eliminated in a single operation that intelligence analysts would later call the most successful counterterrorism mission of the entire Afghan war. But Maya's intervention came at a personal cost. By revealing herself to support the mission, she had compromised every aspect of her ghost operation. Enemy intelligence would now know that an unknown sniper had been operating in their territory, making her future missions exponentially more dangerous. Her handlers would be furious about the breach of operational security, and her career as an invisible warrior was effectively over. As Morrison's team secured the valley and began processing prisoners, Maya made her way down from her sniper's perch. For the first time in 4 years, she was going to reveal herself to the people she had been protecting from the shadows. The decision felt both terrifying and liberating. Maya approached the valley floor carrying her rifle and wearing the simple local clothing she used for camouflage. She had removed all equipment that might identify her as anything other than a local civilian, but her bearing and the precision rifle she carried marked her as something far more dangerous. Commander Morrison was supervising the interrogation of captured terrorist leaders when one of his men reported an approaching civilian. Morrison looked up to see a small Asian woman walking toward their position with confident, measured steps. She carried herself like a soldier despite her civilian clothes, and the rifle in her hands was clearly military grade. "Commander Morrison," Maya called out when she was within speaking distance, "I believe we need to talk." Morrison studied the woman approaching him, noting the way she held her weapon, the alertness in her eyes, and the complete absence of fear despite being surrounded by armed soldiers. "Are you Angel?" Maya stopped 10 feet from Morrison and nodded. "Maya Chen. No rank, no unit, no official existence, but I've been protecting your people in this theater for 4 years. Morrison stared at Maya, trying to reconcile the small woman before him with the deadly sniper who had just eliminated dozens of enemy positions with surgical precision. "You're the ghost sniper, the one who saved my team during the Rahman operation." "Among others," Maya replied simply. "I've provided overwatch for 17 different special operations missions, eliminated 43 high-value targets, and prevented countless attacks on coalition forces. But as of today, my war is over." Morrison's mind raced as he processed the implications of Maya's revelation. The mysterious sniper, who had been the subject of speculation and investigation throughout the special operations community, was standing before him. A woman who appeared to be no older than 25 and who officially didn't exist. "Why reveal yourself now?" Morrison asked. Maya looked around the valley at the captured terrorists and the American soldiers who were alive because of her intervention. Because protecting your men was more important than protecting my cover. Because I realized that some things matter more than missions and orders and operational security. Morrison studied Maya's face, seeing something in her eyes that he recognized from his most experienced warriors: the weight of responsibility, the burden of difficult choices, the quiet strength that came from serving something larger than oneself. Slowly, Morrison came to attention and rendered a perfect military salute to the woman who had no rank, no uniform, and no official recognition. Around them, his men followed their commander's lead, dozens of elite soldiers saluting the ghost who had protected them from the shadows. Maya stood frozen for a moment, overwhelmed by the unexpected recognition. She had spent 4 years fighting in complete anonymity, never receiving acknowledgement for her sacrifices or recognition for her service. The simple gesture of respect from Morrison and his men was worth more than any medal or commendation. Maya returned the salute with equal precision, a moment of mutual respect between warriors who understood the true cost of freedom. When they lowered their hands, Morrison extended his right hand to Maya. "Thank you," Morrison said simply, "for everything." Maya shook Morrison's hand, feeling for the first time since beginning her shadow war that she truly belonged to the brotherhood of warriors who served their country without expectation of recognition or reward. Maya's revelation sent shockwaves through the intelligence community. Her handlers were indeed furious about the breach of operational security, but they couldn't argue with the results. The Valley operation had eliminated or captured more terrorist leaders in a single day than conventional operations had managed in months of effort. More importantly, Maya's actions had saved the lives of 60 coalition soldiers who would have been slaughtered in the terrorist ambush. The intelligence gathered from captured leaders prevented dozens of planned attacks and led to the dismantling of terrorist networks across 3 countries. Maya was quietly extracted from Afghanistan and debriefed extensively about her 4 years as a ghost operative. Her official status remained classified, but she was offered positions within various military and intelligence organizations that could make use of her exceptional skills. Maya chose a different path. She accepted a position training military snipers, passing on the skills and knowledge she had gained during her years in the shadows. Her students would never know her real name or her history, but they would benefit from the experience of someone who had redefined the art of precision shooting under combat conditions. Commander Morrison continued his distinguished career, but he never forgot the lesson Maya had taught him about the true nature of service. He recommended several of his own men for positions with unconventional warfare units, understanding now that some of America's most valuable warriors operated outside traditional military structures. Years later, when Morrison achieved flag rank and was asked about the most important lesson of his military career, he would tell the story of a sniper with no rank and no identity who had taught him that true service meant protecting others regardless of recognition or reward. Maya's story became legend within the special operations community, whispered among warriors who understood that sometimes the most important battles are fought by people who will never receive official credit for their sacrifices. She remained a ghost in official records, but her legacy lived on in the lives she saved and the soldiers she trained. The salute that Commander Morrison rendered in that Afghan valley represented more than just recognition of Maya's skills or gratitude for her service. It was acknowledgement that true warriors are defined not by their ranks or uniforms, but by their willingness to sacrifice everything in service of something greater than themselves. Maya had proven that heroism doesn't require recognition, that honor doesn't depend on official status, and that the most important battles are sometimes fought by those who choose to remain forever invisible in the shadows of history.